Hey guys, welcome back. It's Ripe again, back with more entitled Karen stories. In this video, my entitled neighbor demands I donate my Porsche to her entitled BRAT for his 18th birthday. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. I suffered for years living next door to a Karen and watching her child unfold from a little kid brat to a teenage nightmare that thinks he can do anything he wants because he never has a taste of discipline in his life. His mother Karen seems to think that her little angel son can never do wrong and deserves everything in the world despite the fact that he is a terror. Karen also thinks that she walks on water and that everybody should help her because she is a single parent after her husband realized she was a nasty lady and left her. Karen does not work and my guess is either has old family money or managed some hell of an alimony deal in her divorce. Saying anything else about her really just ties into the Karen name, the typical looking down on people, casual racism, and high levels of entitlement. Before this whole story, the only big issue I've had with Karen was when she felt like her dog should be allowed to make on my property and she didn't need to pick it up. That was a long and annoying fight that didn't really get a solution, as she got rid of the dog once her son got bored of it like a dog was the same thing as a toy. Getting back to this story though, I have two cars. One is a Dodge that is my everyday car. The other car is a 2015 Porsche 911 Carrera. And by the way guys, small reminder, it's actually not pronounced Porsche, you should call it Porsche. Anyway, I drive it a little more sparingly. I really love it and I've seen Karen's son looking at it when I have it in the driveway. I had a bad feeling in my gut that something was going to eventually happen regarding the two of them, but I didn't know what until it happened. One day when I was driving the 911, or 911 I guess, and got out of it, the two of them were standing there and Karen was ready to hit me with that classic entitlement. Also, I'm just gonna call her son Brad from now on. Karen, Brad turns 18 tomorrow and is very interested in your car. Me, happy early birthday I guess. I can let you know the details on the car if you want to go and get him one. Just a fair warning though, that these things go between $60,000 to $70,000. Karen, my son deserves the best. Plus you have two cars, so you should just give him this one as a birthday gift. You don't need two cars and he likes this one. Me, I'm not giving your son, who I barely know, my car for his birthday. Especially not this car. Karen, he needs a car for when he starts college. Me, I've been there. A part-time job and looking around and used lots can find you something in budget. Karen, my son is not gonna work, and especially not at some crappy job flipping burgers or folding clothes. Stop being selfish and just give him the car. Brad, an old fart like you does not look cool having a car like that. It needs someone young driving it and looking great behind the wheel. If you think you can still pick up girls with that, you are out of your mind. Me, no. I went back inside my house and sat in a state of disbelief that interaction even happened. Especially him calling me old when I'm only 43 years old. Probably younger than his mother if I could guess her age past all her plastic surgery. The next day, Karen came back to pick up the car and I just slammed the front door in her face. I was more than clear the day before and she started banging and screaming that I owed her the car and her son's big day was ruined because of me. I have a Porsche camera and caught all of it on said camera. I felt like my car was safe being in the garage, but Brad and his friends must have managed to get the door open and destroy the car. Using the old Brad logic of if I cannot have it, nobody can. Broken mirrors, dented doors, cracked and smashed windows, and even slashed tires. I'm sure this guy was very proud of himself and thought he taught me a lesson. Instead though, I was about to teach him a serious lesson about being an adult and the consequences of those actions. Aside from a doorbell camera, I also had one in my backyard and could see the footage of him breaking in, and even Karen was there helping him destroy my car. I called the police and showed them the video and how the two culprits both lived next door. I also had to take my car in to get the cost of it getting fixed appraised because you can bet I was pressing civil charges to get the money back as well. The police asked if I wanted to handle things solely in civil court or if I wanted to press charges against them. I wanted to show them that doing bad things will have negative effects because clearly neither one of them learned that as a child. I of course pressed charges for them to be arrested for breaking and entering and destruction of property. Due to Karen on my door camera, I was also able to add BRAT harassment charges against her. The two of them were genuinely shocked that they were getting arrested and tried to talk their way out of it, saying that they didn't do anything illegal, going as far to claim that I stole her son's new car and they were just trying to get it back. Nobody believed a word of it, of course, and they were taken in and not getting their way for the first time in their lives. In court, their story was that I had agreed to give them the car as a present and then take it back from them. I was asked my side and told them that I refused to give away my car and that they were too entitled to take no for an answer. Using the porch footage to back up my side, Karen went back to her original sentiment of me having two cars was being greedy and that I did not need both of them. That she was a single mother and just wanted to give her son a nice gift, and I was some kind of monster that just wanted to see him be sad. With proof of what she did and no real defense on their side, they were both found guilty. The son got some pity and ended up not going to prison, but instead being put on probation, which for a young guy like him going to college kinda sucks. His buddies will be able to get into mischief and do dumb crap, but if he gets caught, it'll be prison too. Karen was not sitting on her first offense, as she had previously been in court for getting into some fight with another woman at a store. I don't know the details, and as far as I know, that story could be on this very page somewhere by another member of my town. Anyway, she was going to prison and was complaining that without her, the BRAT was not gonna be able to survive. I almost burst out laughing when the judge said he could get a part-time job at a fast food place or clothing store to have enough money for his needs while in college. I presented my bill that I wanted her to pay for destroying my car. It was high 5 digits, and she started to argue that she did not believe the car alone was that much, but being shown the breakdown of it made anything she said invalid. She broke it, so she was gonna buy it and the court was gonna force her. It was a nice ending, and at least now I don't have Karen and Brad living next door to me anymore. Part of me hopes that without Karen, he might grow into a real member of society, but I seriously doubt it. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say unfortunately a lot of these Karens have kids that probably turn out the same way their mom did. It's not really the fault so much of the kid, but it's just the factor of socialization, and it's very hard to escape that. So yes, I might have some empathy for the entitled kid. However, only a sliver of it. The next one is an Am I the A-hole story, and by the way, if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It might be the best thing you do this week, trust me. Either way, am I the a-hole for rejecting the worst name ever for our baby? So my husband, 38 male, and I, 36 female, are expecting our first child, a bouncing baby girl due in a few months. We were both over the moon when we found out the gender, but now things have gotten complicated, to say the least. See, when we first started talking about names, the boy name was immediately decided. It was Stuart Jr. after my husband, no problem there, it's a classic name and carries family meaning, but for a girl, things got murky. My husband suggested Stuarta. And by the way, funny fact, sometimes I Google how to pronounce XYZ word. However, when I tried to Google how to pronounce Stuarta, I did not find a single page or video. Must be a super unique name. Anyway, OP further continues, no, you're not having a stroke. Apparently, his logic is that since Stuart ends in T, we can just add an A to make it feminine. I tried explaining why that doesn't quite work, how it sounds more like a furniture brand than a human name, how she would be endlessly correcting people and explaining its origin. He is adamant though and says it honors him while giving our daughter a unique name. I've suggested alternatives, feminine names that maybe share a similar sound or meaning to Stuart, names that he has mentioned liking in the past, even just going back to the drawing board entirely, but he is fixated on Stuarta. Now, I love my husband dearly and I understand wanting to honor family, but I cannot imagine subjecting our daughter to a lifetime of awkward stares and endless questions about her unusual name. I also worry about potential bullying and the impact it could have on her self-esteem. So Reddit, am I the jerk for refusing to budge on Stuarta? Is there any compromise I haven't considered? Help a soon-to-be mama out. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you would have done in this situation, and also, do you think OP is being the a-hole here for not wanting to budge on that name? I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole, and she has some absolutely certified worries about the name, and I don't think she would do her future kid a favor by naming her Stuarta. Bullying is a real problem nowadays, and I don't think the kid will have an easy life in school with such a name, unfortunately. Someone in the comments said, not the a-hole, naming a child as a 2 yes and 1 no situation means you need 2 times yes for a name to be it and 1 no to make sure that it's not the name you choose. Works both ways if you would ask me. Also, I'm not a fan of naming the first name of a child after a parent, because then the child will always be compared to their parents and need to fight harder to be their own person. I have less problems with the middle name being connected to someone else like parents, grandparents, etc. because that is only a formal name and not used in everyday business. Why is he dead set on Stuarta? I mean, there are so many beautiful names, but he only wants to name his daughter after him? Why not after the mom? Like, you named Junior. Is it a bit misogynistic to only want to name the baby after the father? Whose last name will the baby get? His as well? Maybe you could find a way, like name the baby with the same first letter as your husband, Stella, Sally, Sane, etc. Make sure the baby has a middle name if she shares the same last name as her father. Because it will be annoying for simple things like mail and stuff. Another user said, not the a-hole, tell him he only gets 1 kid named after him, so if he goes with Stuarda now, he will never get to a Stuart Jr. And how come it's so important that he be honored, but not you? See how he feels about naming a future son a male version of your name. Remind him that baby names need a yes from both parents or it's a no. You need to be able to live with whatever you go with. Even if that means both of you missing out on the one you want the most. Another person said, not the a-hole, Stuarda sounds like a pharmaceutical product. I can hear the commercials now. In some cases, Stuarda can cause headaches, rashes and even death. It does not have a decent nickname, and no, adding an A does not make it feminine in all cases. This is one of them. I would just go for Stuart as a middle name. Update to the story. First, the good news. We have a beautiful, healthy baby girl. Bad news, she's named Stuarda. Just kidding. She weighed in at 7 pounds 4 ounces and already has the most incredible head of dark hair. Seriously, where did that come from? Labor was a marathon, not a sprint. 18 hours of fun, but the amazing nurses kept me fueled up on iced chips and cheesy encouragement. And by the way, what are iced chips? I've never heard of that. Anyway, now for the not so good news, the name situation. Buckle up, because this might take a minute. So right before pushing started, things got a little heated between me and Stuart. Apparently, the stress of contractions made him even more attached to Stuarda. He was pacing the room muttering about family legacy, while I was doing some very impressive Lamazee breathing exercises, but suddenly my water broke with a rather impressive pop. Let's just say it startled everyone in the room, including Stuart. The nurse, bless her heart, took advantage of the distraction and very calmly started prepping for a delivery. Everything after that was a blur of pushing, encouraging words and the most amazing head of dark hair emerging into the world. The second our daughter was out screaming her little lungs out, a wave of pure primal love washed over me. It was in that moment, staring at this tiny perfect human being, that the name debate completely evaporated. There was no way I could call this beautiful little girl Stuarda, so what did we end up with? In the haze of postpartum bliss, I blurted out the first name that popped into my head. The name of the incredible nurse who had coached me through labor. Ella. Yes, Ella. Not exactly the most adventurous choice, but in that moment it felt perfect. By the way, great name. Strong, steady, kind, just like the woman who had helped bring our daughter into the world. Stuart, bless his confused heart, which by the way sounds very southern, just looked at me, then at our daughter and then back at me again. Finally, he let out a shaky laugh and said, Ella it is. Thanks for all the support and hilarious Stuarda comparisons. Here is to sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the incredible journey of parenthood. And well, ripe stars, I would say the joke is on OP. Imagine how much money they could have made with pharmaceutical commercials. Just kidding, of course. Props to OP for staying strong and giving the baby a beautiful name. Anyway, the next one is a slightly humorous revenge story. This is my aunt's story. So I am in her house because there's a family reunion. My aunt, let's call her Sarah, and her ex-husband Dick. This happened almost 10 years ago. My aunt Sarah discovered her husband was cheating on her with a 25-year-old. He was 49 and my aunt was 42. They had 2 kids. Now, a little backstory. My aunt was a stay-at-home mom and she was very health conscious. In our culture, people tend to overfeed you. But she was against it because people in our family have heart conditions and diabetes. Dick was someone who liked to eat and lead a lazy life. My aunt always pushed him to do some exercise. The reason is none of the men in his family lived past 55. She wanted him to stay alive for the kids. She always cared for his health, did all his chores and was a good wife overall. But it was not enough for Dick. He went on and cheated on her and blamed her. Because when he is with the mistress, he feels alive. The mistress does not force him to eat healthy or exercise. The mistress does not nag him all the time. My aunt was devastated, of course. Her husband left her and soon she's gonna be a single mom. So instead of wallowing in pain, she packed his stuff up and went to the mistress' house. She left those bags and had a long list. The list contained the number of medication he needs, aka what he needs to eat, his schedules, where he shops, what he likes to eat, etc. It's basically a manual of how to keep her deadbeat husband functioning. The way my aunt described the mistress's expression is priceless. It's like as if there was an explosion in front of her. A few days after she left, she would get constant calls from the mistress about her husband. She would complain that he doesn't like the food she makes because it's not like hers. Even her ex-husband had the audacity to call her when his GF was not home so that she can come and cook. She would always hang up. They both called multiple times and my aunt turned them away each time. She got backlash for not caring, but she was stubborn in her decisions. Over the time, her kids also stopped visiting their dad because their dad knows nothing about the kids. It's been 10 years, she is divorced, she works as a teacher in a school. Her kids are all established and take care of their mom, they barely talk to their dad. Aunt never got married, I think she doesn't want to either. On the other hand, Dick and his mistress are miserable. The last time I saw them, Dick looked fat, like really fat. He had a heart attack last year. Or heat, I'm not sure. The mistress looks like she aged 20 years. She looks miserable, and whenever she looked at Dick, it seemed like she wanted to kill him. I guess my aunt was the only one keeping him alive. But I will give him credit for making it past 55. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Like some of you out there that live in an HOA and don't want to become a member, I get harassed a lot. It got to a point where I would pretend I was not home and attempt to block the numbers I knew were just a HOA. The only thing they ever seemed to do was nag me to join anyway, so blocking them was the obvious answer. When people know your number and where you live, it's literally impossible to keep them from bothering you. Now, you might wonder why I was so against joining this HOA in the first place, and the simple answer was that I didn't feel like there was any big purpose to them even existing. It would just be money out of my paycheck that I probably would not end up seeing as a benefit anywhere else. The more complicated answer was that I always kind of viewed my HOA as a little bit of a cult. Some people got really into it and hung onto every word of the president like he was sent down from heaven with all the answers to life. From other stories I've heard, I don't really think that this was a normal thing. Sadly, it also meant just more people trying to get me to join just because the president was telling them to. Fast forward a little bit in time and I hear a noise and go outside of my home. The sight that awaited me is that the HOA members put what I can only describe as a fence on my property. It was almost like a cage because it was three-sided. Unlike anything I would call a normal fence, it also was not there to divide any property like every fence I've ever heard of. Instead, this thing was basically in the middle of my front yard, just hanging out. You can understand that I was a mixture of confusion and fury. I tried to shoo them off of my lawn, and while that worked, they came back quickly to finish whatever they were doing. I did not want to play this game, so I went right to the head of this operation himself. Me, do you know what your members are doing to my lawn? HOA president, oh yes, they were so nice to volunteer, so we didn't need to waste money hiring somebody. Me, they are destroying it. What made you think it was okay to build some weird fence on my property without so much as an ounce of permission? HOA president, they had permission. I told them they had consent to go on the property. Me, it's my property, it's my consent they need. HOA president, in the HOA guidelines it states that the president can commission work to benefit the community on any member property. And I can also give others permission to carry out that work. If you lost a handbook, I can gladly give you another one. Me, I'm not an HOA member though. I told you 1000 times that I didn't want to be part of your weird little group. You cannot just decide I am. HOA president, I don't know what else to tell you about the matter. Your property is listed as a member and the perfect spot for us to start the community garden. Me, you're not going to take over my front yard. Take over one of your actual members' lands. The conversation wasn't going anywhere, and I read enough stories to know exactly what I should do next. I went and got a lawyer that specialized in HOA issues, and I told him right off the bat what they were doing and that I had never even signed up for the HOA. He told me if that was the case, then it should be open and shut. He could force them to remove it quickly with no hassle. That was not what ended up happening though, because, well, if it did, I probably would not bother posting this story. Instead, he came back to me with documents from the HOA lawyer that showed I had signed to be a member. That was 100% my signature on the form, but I don't remember signing up at all. We started brainstorming what could have happened, and eventually it hit me. A few months ago, people were going door to door to ask for petition signatures. It was about increasing school funding, which I'm always for, so I signed. It turns out that the petition was fake and they had a paper underneath, so when I signed it, it bled through to the HOA agreement form. It was going to be harder of a fight now, since their paperwork looked legit from the outside. Still, I had some options and was gonna do everything I could to get them off my lawn. While I try to play fair, I live by a set of rules that basically says if the other person is trying to screw me over, I don't need to play nice. We knew they had a plan based entirely off of me attempting to prove their forms forced and tricked me. Instead, when it came time to speak in court, I threw them for a loop by going an entirely different direction. I felt immense pressure and harassment to join the HOA for years. I have tried to block phone numbers or emails, but no matter what, they kept coming. It put such a strain on me mentally that I didn't think I could do anything else to make it stop. I never thought they would take over my lawn without even asking me first. If you're reading carefully, you might notice that I never said I actually signed the papers or joined the HOA. Sure, I alluded to it, but nothing I actually said was an outright lie. Even when I was shown the papers and asked about it, I just told them the truth. That it was indeed my signature on those forms and not forged. The HOA lawyers were scrambling to try and figure out what to do with this. They didn't think I would make this case about harassment and joining under duress. It even says in their own stupid rules that if it was done under those conditions, the paperwork is not valid. The judge sided with me and I was able to basically undo the fact that I signed the papers in the first place. While we were there though, we also had to talk about the fence on my property. The HOA was now claiming that if I was not a member anymore, they didn't have to remove it since they could not come on my property anymore. The judge was having none of that and told them that the fence placement was illegal to begin with, so removing it was probably the only way to stop them from getting sued further. I was gonna give them none of that courtesy anyway, and I had a lawsuit for the illegal fence ready to go as soon as it was declared illegal. And well, that went about as well for them as this case did, and I was graded $89,000. After all of that, the HOA and all their little cult members were furious at me. They spread rumors that I stole money out of starving children's mouths and wanted to see the entire community burn. I knew that their hate was coming from a one-sided story, but I didn't care enough to go around and attempt to correct them. I knew that they followed the HOA like a deity and it would be pointless. Instead, I was busy trying to figure out a nice way to spend my money. Also enjoying the fact that the HOA was not allowed to try and get me to join again in fear of me suing them again for all the harassment this time. And yeah, ripe stars, let's hope that crazy entitled HOA never messes with OP again. However, it seems like if the HOA notices that you fight back and you're not letting them bully you, they are actually scared themselves and back off eventually. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.